All right, all right, all right, all right. We are live. Welcome back, everybody. This is episode number 14 of Casual Calibration. I am, of course, your host, Scott, the one, the only, the very valuable Scott, here to lead you through all of the week's information. I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be in the live stream with everybody here. I like to see where you guys are listening to me from somewhere. So if you guys want to put up your city, I always like to see where you guys are listening to. And I'm just going to go ahead and hop right into it. We have a bunch that we're going to talk about today. There is an ongoing corruption scandal in Kiev that I had mentioned on the last live stream, but it has developed, it has changed, and we are going to discuss that today. We are also going to be discussing the ongoing peace plan that is being forced on Zelensky. A very odd thing to happen a week after Zelensky said that negotiations with Russia were terminated. But it sort of just shows the developing situation on the battlefield and just the overall Ukraine project health going forward. We are also we're going to cover that piece. We're going to go over that peace plan. We're going to talk about it. And then we're going to talk about what's going on with Venezuela, and then we're going to probably finish off with what is going on in the Middle East. There is a ton happening. So without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and get into it. I'm just coming over here real fast. No, you don't. No, you don't. Let's measure right now. Cork, Ireland. Nice. Philly in the house. Nice. Poland. Nice. Sacramento. Nice. Hello, Quinn. Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas. Nice. Got family out there. I love Fort Worth. Greetings from Saskatoon. Nice. Leipzig, Germany. Nice. Tyrone, nice to see you. Portland, Oregon, Idaho, Denmark. Beautiful. Copenhagen, London. Guys, we got people from all over the world in here right now. Arizona, Italy, as usual. Nice to see you, Luca. Norway, Congo. Congo with a K. Bakhmut. Yes, Tyrone, I do. Netherlands, Nicaragua, Argentina, Ontario, Denmark, Manhattan, Cali, Ontario, India, Sweden. Nice. Florida, everybody is in here. I'm so glad to see so many people in here. That takes us to about 3 minutes, so I'm just going to go ahead and hop in. Thank you all for joining me today. We are going to start with the discussion on the recent corruption scandal. So there is currently an ongoing corruption scandal in Ukraine. This is not really anything new. There is always corruption in Eastern European countries. Ukraine is one of the most corrupt countries over the last 30 years inside of Europe. It is more corrupt than Russia in most cases, especially now. And this corruption has only been exacerbated by the billions and billions and billions of foreign aid dollars, which are being dumped into the country and not being properly managed. This is something that we had talked about since day one of this war. It was one of the biggest reasons I was very against sending any of our tax dollars to this country, because even if you had the right moralistic idea in protecting Ukraine or whatever, which is, in my opinion, factually just incorrect. But if that was your position, that position is sort of mute when all of that money ends up going into the pockets of European elite, American elite, and Ukrainian elite. And it's all just embezzled and fraudulently stolen. And the topic now is this infrastructure protection project that was supposed to be put into place about a year ago. The Ukrainian armed forces were supposed to put up concrete installations around substations and power generation facilities, which, if you really think about it, doesn't really protect them at all. It is already sort of a fraudulent idea before it was given any money. But after the money was provided to the Ukrainians, this project just never went into action. The Ukrainian energy grid was completely exposed. I'm not saying that the protection plan would have actually protected it, but it wasn't there at all. And the money had been given. So that money is just gone. Now, this is a very, very bad situation for Zelensky. Zelensky is already under tremendous domestic pressure. There are arguments right now whether he should mobilize the younger age demographic or not. There is discussions about if he should push for peace or continue the war. And this comes at a time where Ukrainians are suffering from 12 to 18 hour a day power outages. Ukrainian men are being punched and kicked and black-bagged into vans, sent to the front line where they are almost immediately killed for the most part in these like territorial defense units and stuff like this. So there is a tremendous amount of domestic pressure on Zelensky. There's also now an intense amount of foreign pressure also being put on Zelensky. The U.S. has for a long time now, since the Trump administration, and I had personally talked about this with Brian Berletic for almost 2 years now, the division of labor, which Pete Hegseth talked about in February, is now taking effect, right? And we're beginning to see the shortcomings of what Europe can provide to the Ukrainians and what the U.S. was doing for this proxy to fight against Russia. With all of this mounting pressure, with the corruption scandal, with the deteriorating situation on the front line, we are reaching a pressure point where the Ukrainian regime will be forced to take some sort of dramatic measures, whether that is accepting this new Trump peace plan that has been put forward, or whether it is, doubling down on the situation, going full control mode and just locking everything down. We are reaching that inflection point. It is coming very quick. It seems as though the pressure from the outside, Europe wants Zelensky to continue the war, while America wants Zelensky to push for peace. But, when we're talking about this push for peace idea, this has been an ongoing thing since 2022. We've had multiple meetings in Istanbul. We had the Trump-Putin meeting in Alaska. And I just want to bring up something very quickly for you guys. I'm going to go over to my Twitter here, and I'm just going to show you a Truth Social post from the man himself, Donald Trump. And I talked about this previously, so this isn't like new, but this is from August, right? And I just wanted to just touch on this for a second. After getting to know and fully understand the Ukraine-Russia military economic situation, and after seeing the economic trouble it is causing Russia, I think Ukraine, with the support of the European Union, is in a position to fight and win all of Ukraine back. We'll just stop there. That was in August. Last week, Zelensky terminated all negotiations with Russia going forward, and this might have been a precursor to this deal that they might have known was coming, and they try to sort of prevent it. But now we have the Trump administration, putting immense pressure on the Zelensky regime to accept this new peace deal. And I'm going to talk about that new peace deal now. So in this peace deal, hold on just a second. Okay. So I'm just going to go over the peace deal. It is a 28-point peace plan. And I'm just going to touch on the specific topics that are basically non-starters for the Russians, and non-starters for the Ukrainians, non-starters for the Europeans, and just in sort of how the entire peace deal is once again neglecting very basic and important issues with this war. But it is now the closest attempt by the U.S. to force Ukraine into some sort of capitulation. I would say it's probably the best deal Ukraine is going to get at this point. So it's not really a capitulation, but that is what the pro-Ukrainian and Ukrainian information space is basically describing this as. So the first point in the peace plan is the security and political status of Ukraine. So this includes confirmation of Ukraine's sovereignty by Russia. That means that Russia accepts that Ukraine is a sovereign state. Ukraine receives security guarantees from the U.S. with conditions. I think that those conditions would be very heavy and almost not really amount to any sort of real guarantees. Ukraine enshrines non-alignment and refusal of NATO in the constitution. NATO confirms that Ukraine will never become a NATO member. So that is one very important point for the Russians. Let's see. The size of the armed forces of Ukraine will be limited. I think it's something like a 2.5%. We're reducing it in half, but I think it's a little bit more than half of the Ukrainian military will be downsized, and Ukraine will remain a non-nuclear state. So this is very clear what the U.S. is trying to do. They're trying to meet all of these sort of Istanbul plus requirements, but still leaving enough room for the Ukrainians to accept the deal. So that's where the security guarantees come in and stuff like that. Onto territorial issues. Crimea, Donetsk, and Luhansk are recognized as de facto Russian. This is a problem already, right? In the Russian constitution, Kherson and Zaporozhye, the entirety of those oblasts are Russian states. They are currently under Ukrainian occupation. There was some talk during the Alaska meeting with Putin and Trump, where they had talked about freezing the line in Zaporozhye, perhaps giving up the idea of Kherson City being inside of Russia. But this goes against the Russian constitution. So it's going to be very hard to politically push that without fantastic guarantees from the opposite side, which, if you look at any negotiations that are currently ongoing, I really wouldn't buy into a deal with the U.S. I think that it is wildly pointless and doesn't serve Russia any good. I mean, if you look at Gaza right now, there is a ceasefire currently ongoing there. Bombs are still dropping. If you look at Lebanon, there's still bombs dropping there for over a year. They've had a ceasefire ongoing. If you look at all of the negotiation paths that the Ukrainians have been on with the Russians and how they have derailed those through their actions, why would you accept a deal? And I'm going to talk about the Russian perspective on this a little later. I just wanted to give the full outline of this as we go on. All right, so now Kherson and Zaporozhye are frozen at the line of contact. Part of the territories become demilitarized buffer zones under de facto Russian control. Both sides commit to not change borders by force, which is perfectly fine until that peace crumbles for some reason or whatever, as it has in Minsk 1 and Minsk 2. But that is at least acceptable, I think, from the Russian position right now. That, and this includes Ukrainians completely leaving the Donbass in the east, which, if the war was to restart after that point, Zaporozhye and Kherson would be a much easier, push for the Russians if the east was completely capitulated by Ukraine. Military agreements. NATO does not deploy troops into Ukraine. This is a key point, and this is something that I've been talking about specifically. The second a ceasefire goes into effect, European troops will be placed into Ukraine as a tripwire. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And what the U.S. will say is that they have no control over what Europe does. We don't have any control over what the European coalition of the willing does with regards to Ukraine. This is a European and a Russian issue, and it's basically calling the Russian bluff that they aren't going to strike these tripwire forces. They aren't going to restart the war because the risk of war with NATO, striking NATO forces that are not NATO forces, is going to be prevalent, right? So that's sort of the gamble that the West is going to be playing on. And this is why I've been very, very opposed to any sort of ceasefire without, basically regime change in Kiev. All right. NATO fighters are deployed to Poland, sort of as a mediation grouping, I guess, that would be in Poland. But this is exactly what I'm talking about. Why would you need NATO troops anywhere near Ukraine? Why? If the war is over, why do you need them there? You don't. You don't need them there at all. So why are you moving a grouping into Poland right on the Ukrainian border, right when peace is about to hit? You do it now. You do it now, because if the Ukrainian country, the country of Ukraine, just collapses, the Russians will be at your border tomorrow. But if it ends and the line is in the east and there's no more conflict, why do you need these NATO troops coming in? Because they will be pushed into Ukraine. I guarantee it. The second there is a pause, they will break this truce and they will just push troops in. And they're going to say, well, we're not really doing anything. It's not like the war is going to restart, right? It's just NATO troops in Ukraine now. That's what they will say. Security dialogue between U.S., NATO, Russia, creation of a U.S.-Russia working group. That's nothing. Russia legally fixes a policy of non-aggression towards Ukraine and Europe. Okay, well, there was no aggression towards Europe before this war started, so that's easy enough. And if the war in Ukraine is over, then why would you need aggression against Ukraine? It's just a non-point again. But it's trying to prevent Russia from legally being able to go to war with Ukraine again. Economic bloc and Ukraine's recovery. The U.S. and Europe will launch a large investment package for Ukraine's recovery. $100 billion of frozen Russian assets are allocated for Ukraine's recovery. The U.S. receives 50% of the profits. Europe adds another 100 billion. Other frozen Russian assets will go to joint U.S.-Russian projects, creation of the Ukrainian Development Fund, investment, infrastructure, resources, and technologies. So again, they're instantly talking about a no-go for the Russians, which is the seizure of frozen Russian assets in Europe. No, that's not going to play. That's not going to play for Putin. That's not going to play domestically. No. So there is another non-starter already. And then number 5, Russia in the world system, gradual lifting of sanctions. Russia returns to the G8, long-term economic cooperation between the U.S. and Russia. Why? Why? They just levied nuclear sanctions against you. They just fought a proxy war against you. Why do you want to get back into that system when your new system that is developing is the future for your country? The U.S. is not the future for anybody. The U.S. is dying. The empire is crumbling. Our economic position is disgustingly weak, and we are going to not be the path to a brighter future for any of these, smaller nations that want to join our system. Why? Why wouldn't you join the Chinese system? They're not sanctioning everybody to death. They're not, blowing up your boats in international waters. They're not giving Israel unlimited weapons to just slaughter people in the Middle East. So there's quite a bit going on here. But I think what the most important position to pay attention to is the Russian one, right? Because we've seen this time and time again. And I have an article here that I would like to bring up. And it's about Zelensky basically talking to Trump about what is going on. If you guys do super chats, I will get to those after I get to the end of this. So thank you for those. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. I forgot to do that at the beginning, but it doesn't matter. All right, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, and then I'm going to read some of this. Vladimir Zelensky will speak to Donald Trump after the U.S. presented Ukraine with a draft peace plan to end the war with Russia. The plan was reportedly drafted by U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and his Russian counterpart, Kirill Dmitriev, without Ukraine's involvement. Huge red flag there already. It is the only way to get to peace, but it's going to be very hard to convince the current regime to basically go into exile or, it's not going to be Zelensky after this. They're going to have immediate elections. He has like a 14% approval rate. He's in the middle of a corruption scandal that he's now looking like he's going to try to defend like he did in the summer. And it's just a very, very, very bad start when you read that Ukraine was not involved, which means they're being forced into an agreement. In a statement, Zelensky's office said that the U.S. believed the draft plan could help reinvigorate diplomacy. He added that Ukraine had agreed to work on the plan's provisions in a way that would bring about a just end to the war. This is exactly what we saw last time, by the way. Trump and Putin had a plan in Alaska. They came to an agreement, or some sort of tentative agreement, at least, on a way to end the war. And then Zelensky and Europe got in Trump's ear, and that entire thing just evolved. The entire plan shifted, and Russia basically said, we're not going to go along with this. Kiev supported all substantive proposals capable of bringing a genuine peace closer, the statement said. Unfortunately, All substantive proposals do not include this one because of the concessions that Ukraine will have to make. If confirmed, these demands would be heavily slanted towards Moscow's interests. They're winning. Explaining Kiev's lukewarm reaction to the draft, of course, because they're being forced into it. So when we're looking at this, what we can expect, or what you can expect, is Ukraine to do another Operation Spiderweb or something like this that will again derail negotiations if they ever transpire. But what I'm going to talk about now is the Russian position. So Vladimir Putin visited one of the HQs for the Zapad. Let's see, hold on. Right here. Yeah, so here is Putin visiting one of the HQs for the war in Ukraine, the SMO, and I'm just going to play this and let you listen to his words specifically here. Okay.
Well, we understand this is the doing of the Ukrainian political leadership. Yeah, this criminal group of people, not a government at all, a criminal community. Since March last year, it has usurped power in Ukraine, and it continues to hold that power to fight against Russia and to enrich themselves, something that has become well known following the anti-corruption investigation that took place in Ukraine itself. I'm sure that all of you and everyone, in fact, understands that these people with their golden toilets, I don't think they think about the future of their country, about the lives of ordinary Ukrainians, about their officers, let alone ordinary servicemen and infantrymen. But we have goals of our own, and the most important one is to carry out the goals of the special military operation. We have our own targets, our own goals that are set for us by our people, by our interests. The people depends on you, and it expects from you the results that are of the very high order.
All right, so that is just a little snippet of what he was talking about there, but to me, that doesn't sound like a leader who is particularly interested in negotiations. He basically blames the regime in Kiev for everything going on, with the corruption and, basically sitting on golden toilets. That is a very real thing. They are stealing money from the Ukrainians. They are continuing this war, which is only serving to hurt Ukraine and Ukrainians further. And how do you negotiate with that, right? And when you see Putin at the timing of this is particularly interesting. Which, by the way, Russia has basically openly stated that they haven't been, included in the dialogue very intensely on this. At least that's what the foreign ministry has said. And the next day, you have Putin visiting a command HQ and talking about how the goals of the special military operation will be achieved, how the leadership in Ukraine is not trustworthy. They can't be trusted. They're sitting on their golden toilets while their citizens are being used as a battering ram against Russia, blah, 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 blah. That is the reality of the Russian perspective. There is some disconnect where people think that just because the US says something, everybody's going to fall in line and that's the way it's going to go. People are like, this peace plan is so terrible for Ukraine. And it's like, you think Russia is going to accept it? Is that your position? Is you think that the Russians are just going to all of a sudden, change their tone and their tune. That's what Donald Trump does. Donald Trump changes his tone and his tune every 5 minutes. You know, when he was running in his campaign, the Epstein files didn't exist. And then when he got in, the Epstein files did exist and they were going to release them to influencers. And then they didn't. And then the Epstein files didn't exist at all, right? And he was going on this whole campaign and he called Marjorie Taylor Greene a traitor and all of this, went against Massey, and then now approves the release of the Epstein files, which don't exist. I mean, this is crazy that this is happening. And I'm talking about Ukraine, right? All of that's going on and Ukraine is over here. So yeah, I don't think the timing is right for the US. I don't think the timing is even close to right for Europe. The Ukrainian regime is never going to be ready for peace. That is not why they were put into position. That is not the narrative that they have pushed the entire war, and it's not going to change now. They do have their backs up against the wall. The front line is shifting incredibly quick, and peace is the right option for Ukraine. Concessions is the right choice, but I fear it is far late for that. I think that the Alaska meeting was probably the last chance to do something constructive in that direction. And I imagine by this time next week, we will not even be discussing this peace plan because I don't think Russia is going to give it the time of day. So yeah, that's sort of my entire talk. That's 25 minutes. I will now interact with you guys a little bit. Thank you for letting me rant, but I needed to cover the corruption scandal, the peace plan, and the Russian response. I do have one last thing I would like to show you guys, and I'm going to go over here. But we can see just a quote from this video right here. I won't play it, but all goals will be accomplished. We need to do this to achieve the goals of the military operation. I am sure we've all agreed will be carried out in full. So this is, I mean, that's your answer right there, right? The Russians will be continuing the military side of this. Remember that the Russians use military action as a tool of diplomacy, whereas in the West, diplomacy ends where the war begins. And then diplomacy picks back up when the war ends. So there's sort of a cultural difference, a zeitgeist difference between the thinkings, and that is how this is going to continue. I don't see how this comes to an end. I don't see how Ukraine agrees to the concessions after they didn't want to agree to it 2 weeks ago. And with the ongoing corruption scandal, this could very well be the end of the Zelensky regime. Zelensky may be in exile after this because it's just too close to him. He's too involved in all of it. And with the external pressure on Zelensky, I don't think he's going to have very many options. Now, I would like to pull everybody out of the theater that I just talked about, right? All of that I had just discussed is the theater being presented, right? Now let's talk about what's actually happening. The US is dropping liability for Ukraine. That's what's going on. They're putting forward a peace plan, which they know the Europeans and Ukrainians will not accept publicly. That's the point. The Russians will also not accept this. The US will be able to go like this, which I don't know why they haven't done this. They had the opportunity to do it multiple times. There seems to be serious issues with decision-making in administration to save their lives on Iran, on Venezuela, on Ukraine, so or on China. So this seems to be an ongoing issue, and this is what we talked about in February. This is the division of labor. The U.S. drops Ukraine, pivots to its own hemisphere and China in the Pacific, right? Europe takes over for the Ukraine project, which it's already talking about increasing its military industrial capacity, which I don't know how they do that with their current economy and no cheap Russian energy, but hey, far be it from me to try to tell Europeans what to do. They take over, Ukraine continues to fight, and the U.S. is absolved of the liability of what is about to happen to Ukraine. This is a U.S. proxy. It is no different than the ARVN in South Vietnam. It is no different than the ANA in Afghanistan. It is no different than the Kurds in Syria and Iraq. We betray our allies regularly. We turn them over, we roll on them because they are proxies. They are not meant to be in the Western international community. That's not what they are. We trick them into thinking that is what they are. That is exactly what is happening in Japan. It's inconceivable that Japan would try to go against China in their own region. They are connected. They are economically tied to each other. It is very important that they maintain good relations, but you have a country that has been occupied by the US since World War II. It does not act in its own interests, and it is doing the bidding of the US, and it will end the exact same way for them as it did in Ukraine. The Philippines is also at place I'm begging you to pay attention to. Thailand, Cambodia, Nepal, all of these places are experiencing the same bullshit ideology that they think that they're Western. They think because the US is putting money in NGOs and trying to control their governments and bring them into the West, it's just a fallacy. It's just a fake presentation to try to make a sale. And then once the sale is made, you get to use that country however you want. That is what we saw in Georgia. That is what we've been seeing in Armenia and Azerbaijan. That is what we are seeing in Ukraine. It's what we would have seen in Belarus. It's just so clear and in faces that you should not be able to ignore it at this point. Okay. Yeah. So that's all I have to talk about Ukraine right now. Thank you guys so much. Saw you on the Duran recently, plus 100 aura. Thank you. I'm glad that episode did good over there. I've actually kind of been killing it. I went on a couple of different shows recently, and I seem to be bringing in a lot of viewership. So thank you guys for watching other places where I hang out. I appreciate that very much. All right, guys. If you have questions, you can go ahead and get some questions in. I would like to talk to you guys a little bit. I'm kind of done with my spiel. I did want to talk about Venezuela a little bit. There are still tons of U.S. military assets being moved into the region. It feels like we are very, very close to go time with Venezuela. We're just beginning to see some domestic things popping off. The opposition leader is being very vocal now about overthrowing Maduro. There's just a lot going on, right? There's just a lot going on. And it seems like way too much to just be some sort of political pressure on the regime down there. It does feel like we are going to go for their oil. It feels like it will also be a fantastic excuse to divert attention from the Epstein files, which are going to be released. But when I say the Epstein files are going to be released, they're going to be redacted just like the JFK files. The only thing you're going to be able to tell is that Israeli intelligence is redacted throughout the entire thing. That's going to be the Epstein files. So look forward to those, but my hopes are not super high. But when it comes to Venezuela, I think we are very, very close to an operation against Venezuela. I think it's just politically suits Trump right now because he's so down. He has taken so many political L's lately domestically in the United States. He needs some sort of win. And war is a very good way to get people ramped up. It's a good way to get people mad at you, but you have more control when you're in a wartime position. So I think it is going to be a tremendous mistake. I think it is going to destabilize our own hemisphere, and we will be dealing with the consequences of said actions for generations to come. I have no doubt. But we're up against the clock, right? You're seeing the same thing in the Middle East with Israel right now. They're talking about going into southern Lebanon again, which we all knew was going to happen. It's the Greater Israel Project. They have to get it done, right? They are losing the U.S. Banks, basically the cash flow from the U.S. is not going to be around for very much longer. It is very clear that the entire U.S. population under the age of 60 has all but turned on the Israeli lobby within the United States, the state of Israel. Nobody considers them an ally anymore, and it is just going to deteriorate relations quickly. They're already talking about moving on to India and stuff like that as well. So we can expect probably an operation into southern Lebanon. Further strikes are continuing in Gaza. There is no ceasefire on either ends of this conflict, with Hezbollah or with Hamas in Gaza, but these two fighting forces are very depleted. As whatever they want, however they want. But yeah, I would like to see some of your guys' questions. Is Venezuela more fragile than Yemen? Absolutely. It is Yemen had been at war for almost 12 years, I think, by the time the U.S. got more involved, like actually involved, and Israel was getting involved. It is a completely different country. It is a country that has been war-torn. It is already surviving, right? That's the thing, is like you're dealing with a decentralized leadership group. It's not like they're in DC sitting around, right? So you can't just like take them out. You can try, but it's difficult. And I think let me think. Venezuela is just isolated. They're alone. They are not particularly developed, and I don't mean developed in the way that the U.S. is developed, because the U.S. would be very easy to cripple based off of what we rely on. But Venezuela is not developed in the sense that like the Houthis, they have full control, and the way that they command and control the country of Yemen is, like I said, it's decentralized. They've already been under constant threat for a decade. So the U.S. coming in was like the U.S. trying to take out the Taliban in Afghanistan, right? They're just hiding in caves. You're never going to be able to do what you need to do. You're going to waste a ton of money and a ton of time. We lost like 3 F-18 Super Hornets off the coast of Yemen to dodging ballistic missiles and stuff like that. So yeah, Venezuela is very different and much more destabilized already than Yemen is. Like Yemen is completely destabilized, but that's how they've been for forever. So destabilizing them further is incredibly difficult to do. Thank you, Iranian Putin. Appreciate it. Scott, is it true that your Bubba the streets seem to think so? No, but also, I listen, guys, you got to remember that this is a blackmail operation. So, listening to a child sex trafficker who is also a Mossad agent in private emails talking about, do you have a video of this person? I mean, maybe it does exist, but I would just be very cautious. I'm not a Trump fan, clearly, but I also don't think that child predators who run extensive mail rings for Israeli intelligence are really the people that we should be listening to completely factually all the time. Not saying it didn't happen. We know that Trump was involved, so it could have happened. But I mean, I'm not particularly interested in listening to the claims and rumors of a child sex trafficker and his brother. How can the U.S. can pivot to Asia and contain China when Israel is trying really hard to start a conflict with Turkey and Syria? They're not. Turkey's part of NATO, guys. It's not going to happen unless U.S.-Israeli relationship devolves and becomes a mess. Then you might see something like that. But no, they're all on the same side. I mean, there's like territorial disputes kind of, but the U.S., Turkey, and Israel are all a part of the, NATO alliance, basically. Like, so Israel's obviously not in NATO, but they're part of the entire Western community. Have you seen the people calling Epstein retarded now that the emails leaked? No, I think that Epstein was probably the coolest dude ever. The way that he talks, the way that dude, how you're in a very, like, you're in a dangerous position, but you're in a really cool position is when you can just text Democrats while they're holding like, House meetings or whatever, or Congress. You can just text them and be like, you should just say this because this is how you'll get at Trump. And then what's her name does it. That's crazy, dude. That's crazy. They literally matched up Epstein's emails and text timestamps to like a congressional hearing. I can't remember if it was in the House or the Congress. and one of the Democrats is looking at her phone and then says the exact same thing that Jeffrey Epstein tells her to say in 2019. It's like the perfect example of how we are basically in an occupied government at this point. The fact that an Israeli intelligence sex traffic honeypot ring runner was telling U.S. politicians what to say on live TV is pretty much right. Scott, would you be interested in a semi-exclusive viewing of an English translation of At the Edge of the Abyss, the documentary film of the Battle of Mariupol? Do you mean I watch it and like stream it? Is that what you mean? Is that what you're asking me to do? I don't know what you want me what to do exactly there. Footage of war crime, Ukrainian armed forces soldiers killed and captured apparently as a result. Ukrainian forces. Yeah, this is something that's been going on since 2022. This is nothing new. Just because there's a video of it that comes out, this is nothing new. There are videos of Russians getting knives put in their eyes and their kneecap shot and their throats slit. It happened all over the place. It's nothing new. And by the way, Russians also execute Ukrainians constantly. I just posted a video or a photo from Pokrovsk of a Ukrainian UAV unit that was executed 1, 2, 3. So, I mean, this is not anything new. This is war, guys. And sometimes, by the way, when you're assaulting a position or defending a position, you don't have the operational space to take POWs. Sometimes you execute people because they can't be left alive. They're dangerous. And you can't take them back because you'll die if you do that, right? You'll get hit by FPV drones, whatever. That is not the objective of the operation. So yes, executing people is wrong, but in combat things are messy and that it happens. What about Venezuelan allies in the region? What do they have that can help the Venezuelans? The U.S. controls all of their politics, or they are also next, right? Like the president of Ecuador has an entire private shipping company that he uses to export drugs all over the entire world, right? But we're not going after him because on our side, actual cartels that are killing Americans. No, that doesn't matter. That's not important because she's on our side, right? She's pro-Israel. She's fine. She killed who knows how many political opposition people, but she's fine, right? That's part of it. So, hasn't Dmitriev and Ushanov been working on? I mean, potentially, but it's clear that this is the same deal that was going on in Alaska. Nothing has really changed from Alaska, and that fell apart. So why would you think that this one is going to work? Guys, I've been telling you forever, the US, Europe, and Ukraine can't agree on shit. They can't agree on anything when it comes to this conflict, kind of by design. And all of them have to agree and then present a deal that Russia has to accept. It's not going to happen. And I'm going to double down on that because I've been right the last 6 times. This happens every fucking 3 months. It's nothing new. This happens all the time. And it never amounts to anything because that's not what this is about. This is about regime change in Russia. It's about destroying the Russian position in Europe. It's about controlling Europe. And it's about hunkering down for what's about to come. Calibrated. The biggest shocker was Steve Bannon. He seems to be a bit of a slimy kingmaker. Yeah, bro, it's Steve Bannon. What? What? Yeah, they're gross. They're all gross. Oh, when is the official translation for Edge of the Abyss coming out? I have no idea. I don't work with them. I don't know. Let's see. It's not up for public viewing yet. They're still trying to find a distributor in the West, but I can have it sent to you, review it, spread the word. Oh, okay. Just DM me then. Cool. Appreciate it. DM me. What would be the best face-saving way for the U.S. to withdraw? This is it. This is it. Presenting a peace plan, having both sides say that they don't want to agree to your peace plan, and then cutting aid to them directly, like voluntary aid. Not obviously weapons will still be bought by Europe and transferred to Ukraine. Division of labor. We talked about it. We knew this was coming. Has Yermak been in Turkish prison? No. By the way, all of the people, I think, let me see. I have a post here. I'll let me go to it. This is from Telegram, so not 100% factual. It's urgent. I know this is going to sound very weird right now or wild right now, but you'll have to believe me here and help me with its distribution. Sorry. The president decided not to dismiss Yarmark. He will leave it and go on the counterattack on everyone who has attacked Mindichgate. Now this will be announced and the attack will be launched again. The Russian trail, First Media. So basically what this is basically saying is that Zelensky is not going to go after the corruption with his second right next to him, Yermak. He's going to attack the organization which is trying to uncover the corruption, which he also did in the summer, and it got a ton of backlash. They had people protesting in the streets. So this is why I'm talking about it being an inflection point. It's really not good. It's a really bad situation for the current regime. How many Americans will have to die before Trump gives up on Venezuela? No, there's not. I doubt any Americans will die, or very, very limited. I doubt there will be a ground operation. All we have to do is do what Russia has not done to Ukraine for the entirety of the war. Hit all of their power, hit all of their water processing, hit all of their, economic centers, oil, whatever we need to hit. And then the country will just fold. A sanction regime for like almost a decade. They just got a little bit of relief when Ukraine started, but they're not in a strong position. It's like Syria, guys. It's just a very weak state that has held out, but the U.S. is just a gigantic titan to deal with. Scott, do you think Russia will take back Odessa? It depends on how long the war goes, brother. Do you think there's some kind of secret protocol to the China-U.S. agreement in South Korea recently where Xi Jinping told Trump to back off Venezuela? It's odd how things have cooled. Have things cooled? I see bombers flying off. Like 4 B-2 bombers just flew down into the Caribbean with tankers. I don't see how things have cooled off. They're still striking boats. There's still all this rhetoric. They apparently CIA plans have been approved inside of Venezuela. They just made Maduro the head of another terrorist organization. No, I don't think that that's happening at all. I don't think China has any ability to help Venezuela. So no, I think that I don't think that the U.S. and China are making a lot of deals, guys. That's not the weather right now. Scott could be a lecturer on campus, but he's not left-wing enough to be hired. Only establishment sycophants need to apply. Yeah. Also, I'm a loose cannon. I would have to wait until I get my tenure before I start being the full Scott you guys see before you. I hate school. I hate school so much. I hated it. I hated it the entire time I was there. By the way, you guys might not know this about me. Go into a little personal talk here because I'm kind of done talking about everything. I hated school. I hated it. In 4th grade, I remember I got I was a kind of kid, and then in 3rd or in 4th grade, I had this teacher, Mr. Ruckman, and he did a play all year, and it was like I missed out on like a year of education because we were focusing on this play. I was Jack and the Beanstalk, by the way, so killed it. But besides that, I got a 2 on one of my report cards. It was like 1 or 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 was like the score, and I had to get 3s, but I got a 2, and my mom said it wasn't a big deal. And from that moment, my brain like flipped, and I just started screwing off in school for 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th. I think my junior year of high school, I missed like 102 days. I only went to 1 class period. So I was never like truant because they knew I was alive and going to school, but I never went to any classes. And then I dropped out my senior year. I got like a 32 on my ACT and then went to college. So I hate school. I hated school. I hated it all the time. And it's kind of funny that I do this now. So hated school, hated it. I hated it. And then I went to college. I went to community college for 2 years until I got accepted into UNM. And then I never went because it wasn't for me. It wasn't for me. School has the best weed though. I had a rough time in school as well. It's just not for some people. I remember one of the awakening moments for me is I went to space camp when I was in 3rd grade. I went to space camp, and my dad's very intelligent. He's a very smart guy. My whole family is pretty intelligent, but my dad is like a sci-fi guy. He was making model rockets with me, and I went to space camp one time, and that was like the first time I looked around and I was like, oh, I'm surrounded by idiots. Oh, I'm not at the same level as all of these people, because like the teacher was like trying to teach me stuff and she didn't even have a comprehension of space like I did. And I was in 3rd grade, and my dad had just been like drilling me on this stuff. And it was like those kind of things that just like, I was like, school is for dumb people. If you're dumb, you need to go to school. You need to go to college because you're not going to be able to make it. But I have basically successfully grown this YouTube channel, successfully grown my Twitter channel, successfully done multiple other things throughout my life. I think the cream kind of just rises to the top. And if you think that you are that cream, just make your own path. Just cut your own way, because it's not, society does not want those people to get ahead, really. It just doesn't happen, and you just have to do it on your own. All right, guys. Enough about me. Thank you so much for watching today. Damn, Russia does not give an inch, but I do. Thank you guys so much for watching today. I appreciate you all. Do something for somebody else. I say this all often, but it takes 2 seconds to look around and make sure you're not blocking somebody's way, or go out of your way to hold a door for somebody, or just make somebody else's life easier. I promise it'll come back to you. It'll pay off. The universe is very gracious in that way. Please be safe. Just be safe. I need all of you in here, right? This chat would move so slow if any of you died. So be safe, take care, enjoy the rest of your week. I will be posting videos tomorrow, Saturday, or Thursday, Friday, Saturday, probably. So be on the lookout for those. Take care, everybody. Have a fantastic day. And I don't know, just do it. You know what I mean?